All right, hello everyone, and welcome back after a long break to the second series of the Northern Arena Beat Invitational presented by Bell Main Qualifier Playoffs. This is a lower bracket match, meaning the loser of this best of three will unfortunately head home. Their journey stops here. There are two winners to these qualifiers, upper bracket and lower bracket, and they will each earn themselves a spot at the main event in Montreal, Canada in a couple of weeks. Definitely something to look forward to here. Both these teams, the South American Hope, looking to battle it out here. PaiN Gaming versus Not Today. Gonna be a very intense series. I'm Android from Moonduck Studios, being joined once again by Capitalist. What's your take on this?
My take is it's going to be, I think, a fun series, but it could be pretty one-sided. I don't know. I like PaiN. I just don't have a whole lot of faith in them. I guess when we casted them, they showed some okay things. It just really, it didn't really look to be enough to beat some of the other teams in this tournament. And I think many people looked at Not Today as one of the better teams in this. So it's going to be a tough matchup for PaiN, but it is always fun to have a South American civil war, Peru versus Brazil. You know, that's kind of the storyline of this one, at least.
Absolutely. Now, caster bias, I used to be a huge PaiN fan, but then when Lilkin got dropped, I stopped keeping up with him. Dude, he was so nice to me in all the lobbies. That was awesome. But either way, still great rosters coming out here, so I'm excited to see what this has in store. Again, lower bracket, both of these teams were not able to see themselves up high, so it's now, do or die. They've got to perform here. They've got to get forward in this series, or they go home. And you mentioned Not Today being the favorites here, but PaiN, they start out with a Kunkka Shadow Demon. Lots of control here from that support duo.
Yeah, it feels very comfortable, especially against the Faceless Void opener of Not Today. You have to enjoy Kunkka versus Faceless Void always because it just limits his mobility. Any of these blinking heroes, Kunkka's kind of the bane of their existence, and obviously the combination of Shadow Demon, everyone should well know by now, is kind of one of those really good synergistic support duos. I much prefer opening with double supports, especially if you can get a great combination like this, rather than double cores. I feel like a double core opening allows you to be countered more, because countering supports comes down to more of laning choices and maybe abusing some opening that you see there, but countering the first two core heroes comes much more at the heart of the strategy. I would say it allows you to be able to cover both the mid and late game with ease, I would say.
All right, so Not Today. They're not going to start by picking up their support duo. They grab themselves the Void and the Invoker. Now, it's a little bit unusual to see the Invoker picked up this early on. Do you think there's, other heroes that could have been a higher priority? But I don't know.
I mean, obviously, Faceless Void and Invoker have some good combinations. I think it's probably just a preference sort of thing. They like Faceless Void as an opener, and Invoker just naturally goes well with it. Because one of the big things is that when you have Invoker with this Sunstrike, what it does is allow Faceless Void to be able to put pressure on the enemy carry without requiring support backup. Because before, the Faceless Void by himself, early on, he just doesn't output enough damage to usually get a kill off of a Chrono by himself, especially not on an enemy core. But when you add a 300 damage, plus nuke on top of that, then actually becomes quite easy. Maybe you just need one bash in the whole entire 4 or 5 hits that you're going to get to acquire a kill. But again, you're opening with 2 cores, and this does allow potential counter, and I feel like PaiN's strategy here is a pretty good one. Draw Ranger, even though you're dealing with the mobility of the Faceless Void, Draw Ranger is still a heavy counter to Faceless Void because of the idea of what the hero is. It's a low damaging, high disable, but very timing based hero that is much better mid to late game than it is early game, and Draw Ranger lineups are known to be one of the faster paced strategies in the game. It's dire side, so they can pick up quick Roshan and go high ground probably by 20-25 minutes before Faceless Void has really any damage to rely on. Might not even have a Blink Dagger yet, depending on how his lane goes.
All right, PaiN. I mean, like you mentioned, this Drow puts a lot of pressure on the early game. They do have the potential to grab up a Storm Spirit for their mid, which is something I think PaiN are pretty keen on doing. Of course, TA is always in demand in the South American scene, but she will be banned out by Not Today. So we'll have to see what PaiN do. With the Drow Ranger, I mean, it is a lot easier to go for those ranged cores that typically aren't allowed a lot of space to farm up.
Yeah, Sand King, another nice initiator and team fight hero, but again, it comes at a cost, right? These are somewhat slow heroes, and if PaiN Gaming, if their laning phase goes okay at all, they're going to be pushing down tier 2s and maybe even tier 3s before Not Today have their core items that are necessary for heroes like Sand King, Invoker, and Faces Void. All of them have timings that are like 20 minutes plus, potentially. And PaiN Gaming is looking to exploit that heavily.
So we've got a horse boy on the field. Definitely not a typical pickup, assuming he's going to be in that off-lane position. How's that going to change the pace of things?
It's what Centaur allows you is like this kind of global mobility that is nice to have on a Drow Ranger, as well as gives you an initiator. I can't say that I'm a big fan of the Centaur. I probably would have liked to see like a Slardar instead. But I don't know, maybe this is just a preference thing. Maybe they really like the guaranteed catch of Kunkka with X marks the spot with the heavy nuking power that Centaur has. He has like these slight pros over a Slardar, one of which is the extra nuking power that he does compared to a Slardar who just has his Slithering Crush and his amplified damage. It does give you later on into the game this really nice damage. We're seeing the impact of damage reduction from Kunkka's Coco's Rum and why that Ghost Shift is so powerful. And I think some of the idea behind that has led people to experimenting with Centaur because of that Aghanims upgrade. It's like even better than Coco's Rum, right? It's 60% damage reduction, and it's global, so you can pop it whenever you need be. That idea is kind of interesting, especially against later on into the game. If it does go this late, against the Faces Void Chronosphere, you could potentially use it just outright to counter any damage during the Chrono.
Yeah, I'm really interested here. Again, Centaur's not typically picked up, but you hit on all the right points there with the Aghanim Scepter. Like, holy hell, there is mobility. It's a great escape tool if they need it. It's a great initiation tool, which is something PaiN... I mean, they don't seem to be having trouble with initiation with that X combination and the Disrupt. Now, looking at Not Today's lineup, they've got the Faceless Void picked out already. Do you think Sand King and Ancient Apparition are going to be the duo here, or is it going to be, off-lane Void, safe-lane Void, off-lane Sand King? What's happening?
I guess I would much rather have offlane Sand King. I feel like support Sand King is too greedy. Offlane Sand King can get Blink Dagger by 20 minutes, no problem. In fact, you should probably have it by like 15. Support Sand King, you may not have a Blink Dagger by 20. And again, that's kind of the timing we're looking at with most Drow Ranger lineups, is when they first get the opportunity to threaten high ground is usually 20 to 25 minutes. So I would prefer safe lane Faceless Void and off lane Sand King, but it looks like Not Today are going to switch things up. A safe lane farming Wraith King and an off lane Void still. I guess they're running aggro tri-lane. That's the only way I see this working.
Yeah, I mean, it is real greedy. You talked about the Sand King support being greedy, but having these two hard farmers, I mean, aside from the Invoker and a couple Sand King ganks, Not Today are not going to be able to fight until like 20 minutes in. Now, we've got a Dusa pickup, assuming she's going to be sitting mid, Drow Ranger in the safe lane position. I'm really liking PaiN's draft. I think it's a lot more cohesive. They've got that early game to mid game to late game scaling, whereas Not Today, they're really going to be flimsy in the first couple of minutes of the game.
I like the Deuce quite a bit. It's a strategy that Heen kind of put forward to Curl all the way back in the Manila Major. I think was one of the first times that we saw it in a really high-profile game. The Dusa Drow Ranger strat. So the idea being that the Dusa as a mid laner becomes a lot more viable because the extra damage that you give, and then you also have some longevity to the Drow Ranger strat. Drow Ranger strats are notorious. Even though they are fast, they fall off pretty quickly past 35 minutes. Now, with the introduction of things like the Aghanim Scepter on Drow, as well as now this Medusa as the late game carry, if it does go late, gives your strategy a whole lot more viability past 35 minutes. So I like this a lot. But it's going to come down to much more about the laning phase and whether or not the aggro tri-lane of Not Today is successful in putting pressure against a Draw Ranger.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'm not really understanding is how this AA fits in. I mean, I think they're going for that global presence of, Sword goes in, pops the Chrono, there's the follow-up with the Ice Blast, Sunstrike can help out, but it just seems like that's so situational now. Initiation here onto C4T. Unfortunately, I think he's hitting the deck. There are 4 heroes here. Not much he can do about it. He goes for the Disrupt onto the Void instead of himself, but I think either way he was dead.
Yeah, he kind of knows that, like, if he disrupts himself, then he's just going to be surrounded by heroes, right? So he might as well see if he can get the distance, disrupt an enemy, run himself away.
The important thing, though, is Greedy does get the credit for the kill courtesy of the Sunstrike, though, so he's already starting things out pretty nicely, flying in some more regen for himself, and he should be able to secure the Bounty Rune as well.
Yeah, that's really big, right? Because you need the extra damage to be able to contest the mid Dusa with the extra Draw Ranger damage that she's going to be having. And it also helps to be able to have the extra regen because you may see supports rotate into the mid lane heavily, especially if they're not actually dealing with an aggro tri-lane. It seems like Not Today feel comfortable with running a Faceless Void off lane. He should be very severely threatened, though. First of all, you're dealing with a Disruption Torrent combination, which is not the end of the world by itself, but Draw Ranger should level Silence, Gust, really early on, and that will actually be the reason that Faceless Void dies in these gank attempts. So if they get some successful pressure on Faceless Void, they kill him once, then they can actually rotate mid and put some pressure on the Invoker from there.
Here they go. He's got no time walk. He's just going to be sitting there, torrented up. Draw Ranger, of course, does not have Gust just yet, but can the body blocks come through? Well, there's going to be a 1 tower shot, but either way, Shadow Demon slowly but surely picks up a kill. So lanes are going pretty all right for PaiN. To start out with, the Medusa going to be getting a decent amount going in, but let's talk more about the AA pick. It kind of got cut off from that first blood. Is the AA really just picked up for the wombo combo of the ulti, or is there another purpose here?
I think that Ancient Apparition is a nice support to have whenever you need a little bit of extra damage. And I think, again, it comes with this concept of Faceless Void can threaten solo so much easier when he has 2 globals to rely on. He can easily kill Draw Ranger by himself anytime he sets up the Ice Blast and the Sunstrike in combination.
Alright, kill down bottom. Centaur, he tried to get the deny to neutrals, but Sand King, of course, was able to finish him off. One little snap of the pincers. Now, up top, Sword facing a lot of harass up against this tri-lane. He's really not getting a whole lot of farm. Still 0 last hits for himself. He has a death. What's the best option for the Void? Do you just Talon go jungle, or do you have to stick it out up here?
You would like to be able to Talon and go jungle, but it's just not an option. So he's just gonna try. Part of the thing is Sword is he's kind of accepting that he's going to die, but what he, like, in the process, ideally he's keeping the Shadow Demon Kunkka at top. Now what PaiN are doing really well is King RD is not sitting top lane. The Draw Ranger and Shadow Demon can still keep Sword back, and they can rotate the Kunkka individually to mid lane and see if he can get some sort of free torrent on Greedy and help out the Dusa a bit. He's just going to bounce back and forth. That's what he's doing correctly. Sword, at least, at the very minimum, he should be able to keep 1 support at top lane at all times with his presence here. And that's just kind of like a sacrificial role you have to take as an offlaner.
Yeah, I mean, he's really suffering. Has not found himself a last hit yet at 3 minutes in the game. I mean, just the raw gold per second is buying him that poor man's shield, but there's not a whole lot of comeback mechanics. So with the Void being completely sacrificed, he's sitting at level 2.5. And it's a very different story down here. The Centaur now hits level 3. He's doing all right in terms of last hits, but actually, no, he's not. Why aren't the offlaners getting any farm here? Is it just the try-on-try?
Yeah, I mean, Centaur doesn't really get many last hits to begin with, and we've already seen the way that the Faceless Void is being pressured. Centaur is known for having problems getting farm in the offlane. That's why he hasn't been picked up on that much as an offlaner, because he also can't act independently of farm. Like Clockwork can act independently of his own farm because his skill set allows him to. Hookshot, maxed out battery salt, that can get you kills on almost anyone with no farm at all. Whereas Centaur requires his Blink Dagger. In order to get that Blink Dagger, he usually has to... Oh my god, 40R.
Dusa, jeez, just unleashes that snake, level 3, picks off the Invoker faster than we can even catch. Now, there's going to be a little bit of a rune contest, but we've got Kunkka picking it up, moving in, so 40R applying a little bit of pressure to the lane. Really, really nice kill for that Dusa, and got it pretty solo. I mean, there wasn't really any help there. Is that something that can happen over and over again, or was that a misplay by the Invoker?
That was a total misplay. I mean, I missed it, but it sounds like there wasn't a torrent involved, right? It was just Mystic Snake.
No, it was just the snake comes in. I think he was a little far forward, playing a bit too aggressive, and learns the hard way that you don't do that against a Dusa.
Yeah, you especially with the extra creep that you have out in the Invoker.
Rotation in, 40R pops on the mana shield, but I think her mana pool is just going to get chunked down. There is King RD to defend with a torrent, but Dusa actually survives this. Her health and mana not looking too hot, but she's flying in a bottle for herself, so that should fix itself quite soon. Now, deep dive here. Mordecai just going underneath the tower. Centaur not punishing with a hoof stomp, but Wraith King playing a dangerous game. Only level 4, so there's no reincarnation if things go south.
Yeah, Tava wants to, I think, keep his HP. So if Mordecai put himself in a position where the last creep was about to die, then you could go for the hoof stomp and see if you could get some damage on the Wraith King. But honestly, it's not worth using any of your abilities against a Wraith King unless you know you're going to be able to get a kill, because Wraith King's just naturally going to regen up with Vampiric Aura.
Oh, Tavo unfortunately just gets trapped between some creeps in a hard place. He's going to sit there. He does get off a nice stomp, going for the double edge, but he does get frozen. Sand King lives with just a sliver of health. Nice reaction from him. Now up top, there is going to be an X back in. The sword going to get torrented up and just surrounded by 3, bullied down. This Void can't find anything. Sand King denies to neutrals, but it looks like this tower should end up falling. That's nice early pressure for the Drow Ranger, already picking up a really good amount for herself. So she's going to be working towards that Dragonlance, has the Aquila. It's just about as well as the Drow Ranger could hope to do.
This is why we talked about the possibility of an aggro tri-lane from Not Today, because I think personally it was the best way to set this up. You don't have a guaranteed win for your aggro tri-lane, but your Faceless Void would match up pretty well against the Centaur. If you think about it, Centaur, in order to mitigate what Time Walk does, he'd have to double edge and then hoof stomp in order to keep that damage permanent, or he'd have to just be able to get him low enough to outright kill. And I think Faceless Void would actually be pretty good against that matchup. Get Poor Man's Shield, and just win the right-click battle for the most part with your occasional Time Walks. And then Time Walk off any double edge damage that gets thrown your way. I think that would actually be a winning lane, and you'd put pressure on the Drow Ranger in the laning phase and maybe keep her CS down. But with your traditional lane setup, where you just run a safe lane tri-lane and a off-lane Faceless Void, you can see that off-lane Faceless Void has no chance against this tri-lane. He cannot survive against it. That last kill on him, they didn't even have to use Gust. That shows how easily they take out a Faceless Void when one of their great disabling abilities against the Faceless Void isn't even needed to be used.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a different game from last series. We saw last series everyone suffering from just lack of lockdown, lack of initiation, but here, PaiN, I mean, they've got initiation and lockdown for days. This Kunkka Shadow Demon combination is so potent. Now, there's going to be a group up mid. There's been lots of pinging, lots of doodling around this mid lane, so maybe Dusa deciding to push in. She's got that level 6 Stone Gaze, and she's got herself her phase boots when she flaps them in, so hopefully another lockdown on the Invoker. In terms of overall last hits, everyone's pretty even. I mean, the offlaners and the supports are not getting anything, but it's balanced on both sides. No one's running away from it. Overall net worth, though, is going to be pretty heavily in PaiN's favor.
And this laning phase, we said it was important for Not Today not to let PaiN run away with it, and they really are. Then the next thing is to just not let some of these ganks be successful. For example, the smoke gank on mid is really well timed. It's totally going to catch him by surprise.
Oh, Kunkka a little bit out of range of the axe. He's not able to grab him in time. There's going to be an Atifi attempt in from Sand King, but not going to complete it. So unfortunately, Centaur and Kunkka cannot help Medusa out in the mid lane. Down bottom, Mordecai's been left to his own devices to farm up, going for a really early armlet before even tier 2 boots. So he'll be able to start fighting a little bit sooner than some Wraith Kings will.
Yeah, I think straight up armlet into, I believe he still needs a blink dagger for this game.
Yeah.
Because you need to be able to close the distance with the draw range. You can't rely only on the Faceless Void to be able to time walk in and get a Chronosphere off, especially since he's dealing with Gust. If he doesn't have a blink dagger, there's always the chance that when he time walks in, he gets Gust backward, doesn't get off the Chronosphere, and is easily right-clicked down. So you need that second option for initiation. And then later on, a third option with the Sand King picking up a blink dagger of his own, which he's currently trying to farm via Sandstorm and stacking up this hard camp over here.
Yeah, I mean, it's slow going, but at least he's getting somewhere. Just going to be a good amount of gold coming out of this stack. And his lanes aren't suffering from it too much. I mean, unfortunate casualty here is this Void, who's finding virtually nothing. He's sitting on 2 deaths. He's cut himself a whopping 1,400 net worth total, and he just can't even get up to wave. We see how easily Drow's able to push him back with virtually no effort and no investment.
Mordecai's got a nice big stack of his own to farm, which is pretty nice, the way they're setting this up. PaiN are trying to play pretty proactive, though, and I love the fact they take the Drone Ranger out of that top lane, especially when it's around the time that Faceless Void is going to get 6, and they're going to put the pressure on bottom lane and take the early tier 1. If they get a kill, great. If they get 2, that's even better, but the main objective here is just to take jungle and
Wraith King
take
has
the
no
tower.
mana. He can't reincarnate. He got greedy. There's going to be the armlet here, and they're actually going to let Wraith King off. They've got their eyes on bigger prizes, taking out the easy pick onto the AA. They're diving pretty deep from this. Only 1 stack of Shadow Poison, the torrent off the mark. Is he actually going to get away
no
with
way.
this? Oh, man, Drow Ranger does end up finding him. They've got the vision. They should be able to punish the tower, but what do you think about letting the Wraith King off here? Was that the right play?
I think part of it was just they didn't actually have the extra abilities to catch him, because Centaur's not level 6. Now, think about that move they did on middle lane. If they successfully get that Invoker kill, which all it takes is getting the X marks a spot, and I think it's guaranteed, then they get the experience necessary to get Centaur level 6. If they have level 6, they use the mobility to chase down the Wraith King, and then they get 2 kills instead of just the 1, as well as the tower. Like this, it's funny how those little things happen and can mean much larger impacts later on into the game. Just missing out on like 1 gank because, you know, like maybe 50 distance is the difference between Kunkka completing X marks a spot and not.
All right, now Greedy, because he wasn't killed off there, is able to farm up and has his Hand of Midas completed. At 10 minutes in, on top of what he already has, that's pretty solid. He's been doing a decent amount in the lane. Unfortunately, not going to be able to apply a decent amount of pressure right now as the rest of his team is occupied. Maybe trying to look for a push in top of their own. They now have the Wraith King full mana, so he's got that reincarnate. Oh, but blinks in onto the mid lane. They really want to go for this. There is the Kunkka. He has the X-Torrent combo. They need a little bit more damage, though. The TP in comes through from the Dusa, and there's going to be the combo for Greedy. He picks up the Midas just in time. They go into the Ghost Walk. They know where he is, but they don't have the AoE to catch him, so he's able to sit back, live through this, Midas up when he gets a chance. I think PaiN just kind of underestimated this Invoker a little bit.
Yeah, they probably realized, like, as he's setting up for that Invis gank, he's like, I don't have Dust, but you kind of have to go for that scenario anyway. See if you could just stun lock him and get the kill. Still, though, they're still going to set up. They're keeping, like, the overall objectives in mind, even if they are missing a step here or two when it comes to the ganks. Overall, the objective is solid.
Snakes bouncing around. You got Invoker just stacking up, pulling those Ancients, but the tower easily just melts down as Drow Ranger whacks on it. She's got herself the Dragon Lance, saving up 1,000 more golds. What's she looking for next? We see Drows have a little bit of flexibility after picking up that Dragon Lance.
Trying to think if the full-out Hurricane Pike is a necessity, and I believe it is. You're dealing with 2 melee cores. It's unlikely to save you from getting Chronosphered or getting that surprise initiation from the Sand King Blink Dagger and his Epicenter Burrow Strike, but I still think you want it, even though you could get initiated and kind of one-shot under those big ultimates. Otherwise, I think it's still really value to have against the melee cores, and who knows, maybe even like you get a situation where Faceless Void tries to jump in at you and you're able to Hurricane Pike him backwards, and that creates enough distance he can't use Chronosphere, then you gust him. There's a lot of ways that that item can work out for you. Otherwise, just go for kind of the typical Manta builds. I think there's going to be a lot of illusion pushing from PaiN. Easy way to execute the Draw Ranger strat. Ooh, looks like Sand King thought he had an opportunity to go for an Epicenter Blink there, but I think he got hit by like a Shadow Demon Poison or something.
Yeah, that was not the best first use of Epicenter.
No. I mean, Sand King, you kind of miss those opportunities sometimes. It happens to everyone, to be honest. Like, Epicenter is kind of a hard ability to use sometimes. Just because you have to kind of predict what's going to happen for the next 2 seconds while you sit there, you know, humping the ground, getting ready to release your fury.
Jeez, Cap.
Can you describe it any other way, Annie? I dare you to.
He's thwacking his tail to create an earthquake, and the seismic waves do damage. That is a far cry from humping,
Whacking his tail
sir.
sounds like a euphemism for humping.
God
That's
damn.
what it sounds like.
Get your mind out of the gutter. It is a perfectly normal geologic function. Now, up top, we are going to have a ghost ship coming through, but Greedy, I mean, he's still walking away. I don't really know if they're able to catch this. Centaur ult has been used. The movement speed is not there. Tavo, he's got the double edge. He's just got to get in that teeny tiny range. Torrent not connecting, but turn a tornado, and there is a TP out available. The problem is Greedy actually running away. He goes for the... Nope.
Nice try.
There was a valiant attempt right there.
Yeah, I was gonna be so sad for PaiN if they missed yet another gank, because just like the smallest little inches that would have missed out. But they get it this time around, and they're gonna be able to do Roshan, PaiN again. Like, even if they aren't executing the small little details to perfection, the overall strategy movements that they've made have been sound really early objectives.
AA ult coming in as the Roshan gets low. The Radiant, if they go now, they might be able to find something. Aegis is picked up, but now there's going to be an initiation here. Shadow Demon actually looks to make this offensive. Faceless Void, he's the one running. Going to get glimpsed back. There is going to be a kill onto the Shadow Demon. Now Void leaps himself away. Drow Ranger with that Aegis continuing to pressure forward. Looks like the only death comes on the side of PaiN, but they can definitely sacrifice that position 5 for getting an Aegis on their Drow Ranger.
Yeah, they don't lose anything of value, really. The Shadow Demon, he's gonna pick up an urn, looks like, with some of that reliable gold, and that's a great pickup because the one thing that's missing out of PaiN's lineup right now is sustain. They're gonna be feeling a lot of harassment when they try and move forward. There's gonna be the combination that's going to be laid out from the Invoker, and the only thing that can really keep them from going high ground is that if they get harassed enough, they don't feel comfortable with pushing up there, and they have to back up. But the Urn obviously gives you that little bit of extra healing power that even if you do get harassed, you can still go.
All right, so a bit of a stalemate now. Who's going to be the one to take the next fight? It seems like PaiN are in a really good position to push, but, I mean, they don't want to rush into things. Centaur just now picking up the Blink Dagger. Drow Ranger looks like she's still waiting on the full Manta. Do PaiN have the luxury of kind of just waiting things out and waiting for the fight to come to them, or do they have to keep their foot on the gas pedal and just charge at Not Today over and over?
If they had, like, a puck mid or something like that, you would say that PaiN definitely should be keeping in Not Today's face and pushing those tier 2 towers with this Aegis right away. But when you have a Dusa, it's not necessary. In fact, if you look at what they're doing, they're even getting free pushing out of a Drow Ranger solo because everyone else is, almost everyone else is off map. If you look at it from like Not Today's vision, they only just now got vision of the Dusa who's farming up the Ancients. So they're only just now realizing, oh, maybe Drow Ranger doesn't actually have a full team behind her, but by then it's too late. They've taken a tier 2 and they've farmed Ancients at the same time. It was a really nice, just like efficiency thing. It plays, you know, it looks bad if all of a sudden Not Today run 5-man bottom and kill Drow Ranger twice.
Speaking of running 5-man bottom here, there is going to be that Centaur stomp. Poor little Sand King gets gusted up. There's no chance for that bug to come out of this one. Just squished by Tavo's axe. And now there is going to be the pressure coming in onto the tier 3s. There's going to be Greedy pushing in Tav, but his own Rax might need saving in just a little bit. Drow Ranger with that Dragon Lance able to stand really far back. There's going to be a Chrono and a little bit of miscommunication on the target. The Ice Blast will connect onto the Drow Ranger, but she's still got Aegis. Centaur ult keeps everyone safe, and PaiN can reinitiate. They pop out the Mystic Snake, and they know there's going to be no Chrono, no Ice Blast. That just seemed a little bit panicky from Not Today.
Yeah, that was... I think Ancient Apparition thought they were going to be able to Ice Blast and Sunstrike down the Drow Ranger. But obviously she has the Aegis, so Void had a different plan in mind. I think PaiN almost overreacted in their defensiveness. There really wasn't any extra damage coming down the pipeline that was going to threaten them. But they still pop the Centaur ultimate, they back out, and they go for the tier 2s. Again, I think this is the overall correct decision. Take the tier 2s and get the money that's out there in the field now before you go for the high ground. You still have a pretty decent timing on this Aegis. I think it's probably at least 2 minutes, right? So they can get the last tier 2s and then go high ground. And with the gold they got from those tier 2s, they'll have some fresh items. For example, for DR, he could have gotten the Manta, but he's actually going to be able to pick up a full-out Scotty, most likely, before they go high ground. Jeez. And then the Drow Ranger has the Manta in for her.
Also, have you seen this Dire Courier? It is literally a hot mess.
Yeah, but
there's just a lot of gems on that thing.
Man, how dramatic is that? Trail of Burning Doom. That's what the ethereal gem is called.
Yeah, well, either way, looks like Radiant trying to mount a push of their own onto this tier 1, but even that push is slow going. Now there is going to be that X coming back in. Greedy. Oh, son, he's not going to find his way out of this one. You can't ghost walk away from this much pain. And the Invoker's been trying his hardest to split push, but he's got 3 deaths, 1 kill, not a whole lot of structures to his name. And PaiN, I mean, again, they're just keeping their foot on the gas pedal. They've got the Drow now at her first real peak of the game with that Manta style completed, and they can just push, push, push. It seems like any fight not today throw at them, they just don't have the resources to actually lock down the kills.
Man, I'm really impressed with the way the PaiN is running this Drow Ranger lineup. It just seems like so crisp and clean. They're making like really advanced reads. Like, for example, they set up for that bottom gank, right? But they don't even back away from their top lane push because they know that Chronosphere is on cooldown for another 20 seconds and they have the Centaur ult. So there is no hard initiation that's available for Not Today to catch the heroes at top lane. So even if they smoked at mid and they pushed over to that top lane faster, they wouldn't be able to catch anybody there because there is no Chronosphere, and there would just be a Centaur ult that gives PaiN the distance away from those Not Today heroes. Everything is just, like, again, the ganks weren't quite perfect, and if they had been, PaiN would be actually probably another, like, 5k ahead than they are. But, again, the overall strategy behind the Drow Ranger and what they're doing, their timings, where they push, when they decide to back up and gank with 1 or 2 of their heroes, everything just feels and looks really crisp and clean.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the overall net worth chart, it is just kind of like boop, ba-doop, ba-doop, heading down in favor of PaiN. Is there anything Not Today can do to stop this? They've got really nice initiation with the Chronos and the Ice Blasts and the Sunstrikes. Is that enough? Can they take a full wipe here, or do they just have to keep on turtling and sacrifice their axe?
Just keep turtling and don't let Void get caught out.
Oh, unfortunately, they did not listen to you, Cap. So Void, he's dead for 40 seconds. Not much you can do about it. They're going to be just sending in the Drow Ranger army. She's got illusions for days pushing in this tier 3 tower. And yeah, you've got an Ice Blast and you've got an Epicenter, but again, the survivability is still there. Drow Ranger, her Aegis is burned up, so they aren't going to have that going for them. But I mean, these racks, just from illusion spam, are just getting slapped down. There's going to be a stomp coming in. Unfortunately, not going to catch out the Sand King, but Sand King's now got like a really difficult choice. Does he try to go for the Epi, or does he sit back and watch his base crumble? And without the Void, there's just nothing they can do about it. They've got to let this go. Wraith King now opts to go and buy up a Desolator before finishing off the Blink Dagger. How do you feel about that?
I guess he's just desperate for damage. To be honest, I would have liked to see the Blink Dagger like a lot earlier, and for them to try and play. Because again, like the reason they were able to push out that top lane or push out the bottom lane solo with the Drone Ranger is because they didn't fear some of these heroes. The Sand King didn't have Blink yet. The Faces Void, even when he did have Blink, wasn't. He's not really a hero that by himself provides a whole lot of kill power. So they didn't feel threatened to play this game where they both pushed the outer towers and they went back, TP to their tier 2s, and ganked the split pushers like the Invoker. It just kept everyone in check from Not Today while also allowing PaiN to get really far ahead. That said, if you're in this position, which you are now, 22 minutes, a big huge lead by PaiN, almost 10k, and a melee rack's already down, you do want your Wraith King to have this kind of build, right? It's just a full-out damage build that is looking to be able to contest the Dusa and make her a bit easier to kill. But Scotty and soon-to-be Manta on the way, and it looks like it's still going to be kind of lights out for Wraith King. Even if he does have that heavy amount of damage, there's the extra kiting aspect that Dusa gives you that no other carry really does. She's very unique in what Stone Gaze allows you to have. It's this sort of innate disengage ability that kind of scares back anybody. So if they try and jump Dusa and she's quick enough with Stone Gaze, the whole entire initiation is over, like immediately, because you can't fight into it.
Oh man, Greedy, he's just not quite learning his lesson here. There is going to be that centaur coming in, but they can't get the X off in time. So this time he's not going to be punished for being so far out, and actually forces a decent rotation from PaiN Gaming. The smoke gank going to be following up on this. They're looking for this initiation. Not today. I think they kind of feel that this is the last time they can safely initiate out of their base. The problem is, where do they rotate? How do they start things off? It is very, very tricky. Now this third comes in. He's got a good little chrono to his name. If he can actually come in and catch the Dusa, catch these big heroes, it's going to be great, but everyone just walking in. 40R going to be eating up a lot of damage there with that mana shield. Very, very close engage here. They're focusing on the Dusa, but there we go. There's the Stone Gauge. Now this is going to be a Wraith King burning out that first, but four-man chrono. The sword may still end up dead as Drow Ranger, the big damage dealer, is on the back line. Sand King comes in. He unleashes the Epi, but still goes down. Wraith King hits the deck for a second time. Not coming back now in the sword. He's blinking, he's slamming, but that's going to be a pause coming out as Not Today are just falling apart at the seams. It seemed like that could be the best initiation possible. A four-man chrono, a really nice epicenter all up in their cores, but PaiN, they survived it, and they're able to turn this around. Is this the point of no return, Cap?
Yeah. I mean, I personally would say that the point of no return was almost like 10 minutes ago when you couldn't pick apart the Drow Ranger strategy at all. Like, if PaiN had done like full-on 5-manning always with their Drow Ranger and gone for these tier 2s, then what Not Today did with the way they were split pushing and stuff would have worked out like pretty well. But the secret is that PaiN were not just 5-manning. What they were doing oftentimes, and I think people like vastly underestimate what this does, is they keep their supports off the map, right? So when they're going for this push, all the enemy sees is a Drow Ranger pushing. But because these supports have always been off the map with some of these pushes, they assume that there's a support there, but there actually isn't.
Okay, that's an actual GG. I thought it was just a mistyped G. One thing to note that I didn't pick up on until just now is that Sand King never got a point in that caustic finale.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about, to be honest. I wasn't going to criticize it.
Full utility Sand King, unfortunately not going to be effective here. The Ancient should end up crumbling. Maybe the GG didn't go through. There we go. Either way, it looks like PaiN Gaming are pretty easily able to take game one off the back of a Drow strat. Drow probably going to be a first-round ban in the next game. Just to recap, this is a best-of-3 lower bracket match, so the loser of the series will be dropping out of the tournament. Winner moves on. It's still a tough road ahead, but they're one step closer to qualifying for the slot at the LAN in Montreal. Definitely something you want to look forward to here. I'm Android from Moonduck Studios, being joined by Cap. We're going to be coming at you for game number 2 of this series in just a couple of minutes, so sit tight. More South American Dota action in just a couple of seconds.